Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Morning.
You're all very welcome to this final CUPID conference. To open the conference, we have the very great honour of having Cynthia Mhurchú, who is a member of the European Parliament. Cynthia has been shaped by her experience as a barrister, a broadcaster, as a mother and a teacher. She's a proud Carlow woman. She's a fellow Irish person like myself. And she is delighted to be representing Ireland as a member of the European Parliament South. She's representing Ireland South in Europe. She's a committed member of the Internal Market and Consumer Protection Committee, the Petitions Committee, and the European Democracy Shield Committee. Cynthia champions practical, compassionate policies that protect children, uphold the social contract, and strengthen the single market. Cynthia works tirelessly to ensure EU decisions improve daily life for all its citizens, and that Europe's laws are fit for purpose. We are delighted to have Cynthia here today to open the final CUPID conference.
Gurv míle maith Suzanne is mór an ordom a bheith anseo osbor Gordonio. It's a huge honour for me to be in front of you here this morning in such esteemed company, but such worthwhile, fruitful, industrious people who are involved in this wonderful project, which unfortunately I've learned from one of the Vladimirs is coming to an end, and I look forward to reading the report. But I hope this is not the end. As we say, as Gaeilge, as we say in our natural and native language, Tus ma la na hibre, a good start is half the work, and you've made an excellent start from what I can gather through my little bit of research and reading before I came along here to have the honour of opening your final conference. So, as I said, it's a really huge pleasure. I want to say a deep thanks to Suzanne, because I now remember I met Suzanne back in Ireland in the context of the Irish language and a college that we have in my constituency that offers education through Irish. And of course, language is very important for all of us because we like to communicate. We're human beings. Communication is at the key of everything, and also our identity. And those themes of communication and identity, they really are central to this project and to making sure that we understand intellectual disability or intellectual less able ability, and that we listen, and that we react, and that we act, and that we don't legislate. For somebody like me, who's an elected representative in Europe, in the Parliament, expected to revise laws, look at legislation, see if it's fit for purpose, I need to ensure every single day, that's why I like to come to these kind of events, that those who have experienced or are experiencing intellectual disability are not left behind. Because it's very easy, dear friends and colleagues, it's very easy to have those who don't shout very loud or who are not present every day in the chamber or in the room having the audience. It's very easy to forget about them. And so we need to be constantly reminded, and we need to constantly, as public representatives, as I say, I'm delighted to have been invited. Was it something I said? Or something I didn't? No, before that. Maybe you can hear me better. Yes. And don't you worry at all. I'm so used to this. I used to be a teacher, so I used to shout a lot. Not at the children. I'm used to not at the children, but to make sure that some of the little ones at the back of the room, they might have been falling asleep, just to make sure. Anyway, yes, now in the room today, I understand we have researchers, we have lecturers, we have clinicians, we have advocates, we have family members, don't we? I hope we do, and carers. Carers, the backbone. I'm sorry now to pick out one in that list, but from my own personal experience with family, and in particular my dear mother, carers, the backbone of any family and community and village and town. And they go under-recognised and they go sometimes unrewarded. We're off again. Here I am again, booing. So, your presence here today in the room, all of you that I've mentioned in that list, it really does represent and reflect the importance of the work that you're doing. And I want to say sincerely, as I try and look at everybody in the room, thank you. And I mean that. And I know that if I had other MEPs here from my group Renew Europe, or indeed from my party at home, Fianna Fáil, we would be saying thank you. We can never do enough for carers and others involved in this project, but rest assured, we do our best. We try and do our best. And I do understand that this project, although it ends, I hope you will get positive response and more funding to build on the expertise and to build on the study that you've done and the policy that you're going to produce. So today's conference, I know, is the largest event in the project's history, and I just want to say it is testament, I believe, looking at the people in the room, it's testament to the success of this project and to the dedication of everybody involved. I'd also like to acknowledge, but I understand that that will be done more formally and properly by others involved in the project, but I would like to acknowledge the leadership of the late Professor John Wells from the South East Technological University, which is literally down the road from me. One of the campus is in Carlow, my hometown. But it's with sadness that we, I suppose, celebrate today and come together today because unfortunately poor John was lost to us not so long ago. But we do remember him today with gratitude and with respect. And as I say, I know that his colleague Suzanne will tell you a little bit more about Professor John. But today's conference is taking place against a backdrop of significant challenges. Across the European Union, approximately 2.7 million people were diagnosed with cancer in 2024, and around 1.27 million people lost their lives to this disease. So cancer remains, believe it or not, but we need to remind ourselves of this, cancer remains the second leading cause of death in the European Union. It's kind of hard to believe because we think in Ireland, we tend to always gravitate towards our national state, our national country. We think in Ireland that we've made huge progress and improvements, and we have, but there is more to be done. And without stronger prevention and the early detection measures, the burden of cancer is unfortunately expected to grow in the years ahead. And yet, of course, you, the experts in the room, and also the carers and people who are living with intellectual disability, you know that a lot of cancers are preventable. We know that. So the European Commission estimates that around 40% of cancers could be prevented through effective action on smoking and alcohol consumption and obesity and vaccinations and screening programs and going to our doctor when we notice something and healthier environments in general. But we know that access to those preventable people, the people who will help to prevent, or indeed those services, we know that that's not equal because we know that not everybody has equal access. There are major inequalities and they persist across Europe and they are in access to screening and early diagnosis and treatment and health literacy. So these inequalities, they're particularly acute for people with intellectual disability. And that's why this project goes to the heart of one of the, if I could refer to it as minorities that I spoke about earlier, that can get forgotten but should never be forgotten. And the evidence is concerning. People with intellectual disabilities, they experience significant poorer health outcomes, with life expectancy estimated to be around 20 years less than the general population. That's very significant, 20 years. Cancer-related mortality is substantially higher, while participation in breast cancer screening or cervical screening or colorectal screening, that remains significantly lower. There are 3 major cancers. And these are not simply statistics. They represent, obviously, real people, real families, real carers, real communities, and those barriers, they shouldn't exist. So that's why the work of CUPID, a great name, I love it, well done, whoever thought of it, it's so important. CUPID's work is really important. And at its heart, this action recognises a simple but a very powerful principle, and that is accessible healthcare, accessible communication and understanding and literacy, medical literacy, understanding all the small print, and inclusion. Inclusion is not an optional extra, it's a right, and it's a right that should be allowed to be exercised. So one of the most remarkable aspects of CUPID has been its commitment to co-production and to learning directly from lived experience. I wish sometimes the Commission would take a leaf out of your book and road test some of the legislation that we see put in place for various sectors, and then we find out it's not really fit for purpose because they didn't road test it and they didn't listen to the prospective users before they put pen to paper in terms of the legislation. But learning directly from lived experience, it's so important, and the involvement of people with intellectual disabilities and their families and carers, they should never be add-ons. They should be central to any project like this. And of course, you got it right from the get-go. So your approach is inspiring, and it's very necessary, and I commend you. And indeed, I do believe it's one of the features that has made this CUPID action, this policy, this project, it has made it different and distinctive. And that's why I hope it does go on. And that's why I do hope it further informs more policy and more projects like this. So it does remind us, your project, that effective research and effective policy, they are strongest when they're developed around the people that it's intended to assist. So as a member of the European Parliament, I didn't believe what I was hearing from Suzanne. I didn't know who she was talking about. But look, I'm just a worker. I like working. The truest and the thing closest to my heart was being a mother. And it has been the best job of my life. And it still is the best job, even though they're adults now. But being a mother, also being a barrister and working for people who were legally aided, so they wouldn't have been able to afford me out of their own pocket. They didn't earn enough money, so the state paid me to represent them in very difficult circumstances of divorce, separation, children in foster care, etc., children in care. So only for my voice, which was my little talent, only for my voice for them, they wouldn't have had a voice. So I've brought that experience, I believe, into the European Parliament to try and speak up for those that I feel are not always offered a voice, they're not always given a voice, and they're not always heard. So the challenge, though, is very clear. And I strongly believe that we have a vital role in the Parliament to play in tackling the complex health challenge. Now, cost actions such as CUPID, they demonstrate how bringing together all of the expertise that you have in the room and beyond, online as well. I should have said good morning to the audience online. I do apologise. Hello to everybody tuning in, and thank you. But it's really important that we get the expertise from across the EU 27 and perhaps beyond. So we must ensure that advances in cancer prevention, screening and care are accessible to all. That's really the simple message for me. And we must continue to address the inequalities that leave some of our most vulnerable citizens behind, with statistics that are far worse than the statistics of those of us who are able-bodied. We must listen carefully to the voices of those who are experiencing intellectual disability, who are living with it. So I hope today's discussion is going to be a great wrap party for all of you, but there'll be work to be done in the meantime. I hope it's going to inspire new ideas and strengthen partnerships and all of that. But most of all, I hope this won't be a full stop, a standstill. I hope to goodness that the leads that I've heard about, the various leaders, we had some photographs taken. I hope that the leaders are informed by the membership, by you here today, and that this goes further. Thank you again for your commitment, for your energy. Vlad. Thank you so much. Thank you, Vlad.
Okay, we are continuing with the program. Thank you very much to Madame Cynthia, member of European Parliament. I think that she has great points. Now we are continuing with the conference, and I have a great honor to introduce all of you. You know her, but I will say a few words about her. Dr. Suzanne Denieffe. She is head of Faculty of Arts and Humanities, Waterford at Southeast Technological University in Ireland, a role she has held since 2018. With qualification in nursing and health sciences from University College Dublin and the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland. She previously served as a head of department of nursing and healthcare, an active researcher and supervisor. Her work focuses improving quality of life of all vulnerable groups, including leading prevention research of those with disabilities. I hope that you will enjoy her presentation. She will present the CUPID project during this session and all the work activities in almost last 4 years. And with warm applause, please welcome her. The floor is yours, Suzanne.
It's after messing up again. Apologies, everyone. It's after messing up again, the technical words. Sorry about that. I hope it wasn't something I did.
Nope.
Thankfully, I had the expert to sort it out. Thank you to Vladimir for those kind words. So, I am absolutely delighted to be here today to talk to you about CUPID. So, we have in the audience distinguished guests, colleagues, fellow researchers, healthcare professionals, policymakers, self-advocates, family members and friends. As I stand here today, I am struck by the significance of this moment. This conference marks the culmination of 4 years of collaboration, innovation, friendship, advocacy, and shared purpose. However, this is not simply the end of a cost action. It's actually the celebration of a movement. And a movement that was built on the belief that people with intellectual disabilities deserve the same opportunities for cancer prevention, early detection, and healthcare as every other citizen. So today, I just want to reflect very briefly on our journey, how we started, how we grew, what we learned, what inspired us, and where we go next. So why CUPID matters? So before we talk about CUPID, we need to remind ourselves why this work matters. As Cynthia said in her presentation, cancer remains one of the leading causes of illness and death. And despite major advances in prevention, screening, diagnosis and treatment, not everyone benefits equally from these advances. For people with intellectual disabilities, significant inequalities remain. And research has repeatedly demonstrated that lower participation in cancer screening programs, later diagnosis, poorer access to preventative health information, and poorer outcomes follow diagnosis. So the challenge is not that people with intellectual disabilities do not want to participate. The challenge is that our systems often fail to include them. For too long, people with intellectual disabilities have remained invisible in cancer prevention policy, research, and service design. And CUPID was created to address that. So, to bring you back to the beginning. So every project begins with a question. And for us, one of those questions came through the work of Dr. Mary Reedy. And Mary is now a staff member at my university. And Mary's PhD research was supervised by Dr. Sinead Foran, who's here with us today, and I. And Mary explored cancer prevention and intellectual disability at a time when this area was receiving very little international attention. So Mary's work asked important questions. So what do people with intellectual disabilities know about cancer prevention? What barriers prevent engagement with screening programs? How accessible is cancer information? And the barriers were rarely about willingness. Instead, they were often embedded within our healthcare systems. Information was inaccessible. Appointments were difficult to navigate. Reasonable adjustments were inconsistent. Communication challenges were frequently overlooked. And Mary's work helped shine a light on inequalities that many people had never considered. And more importantly, because we developed an intervention to support people going for screening, we were able to see that change was possible. And looking back now, it's remarkable to think that what began as a doctoral project helped contribute to the foundations of an international European network. Mary's work reminds us that research matters when it changes lives. So, the journey from a single research project to today was not accidental. It was driven by the growing recognition that these inequalities existed not just in Ireland, but across Europe, across healthcare systems and across cultures. So when colleagues from across Europe began sharing experiences, we realised that many of the same challenges existed regardless of geography. People with intellectual disabilities face barriers all over Europe. And researchers were often working in isolation, and there was limited collaboration, and there was very little opportunity to learn from one another. And that was the catalyst for the Cost Action CUPID. So in 2022, CUPID was established to bring together researchers, healthcare professionals, educators, policymakers, in other words, all of us. And our goal was ambitious. We wanted to reduce inequalities in cancer prevention and early detection for people with intellectual disability. But equally importantly was how we would achieve this goal. We set out to achieve it through collaboration, through partnership, and through co-production. I do want to take the opportunity to remember Professor John Wells, because no story of CUPID can be told without remembering John. John was the visionary who led the original cost action application. He recognised the importance of this issue long before others, and he saw the potential to bring together researchers and experts from across Europe. And he believed that meaningful change required collaboration across disciplines, countries, and sectors. And John combined academic excellence with humanity. And he challenged us to think differently, and he encouraged us to be ambitious. And he consistently reminded us that people were at the centre of our work. And sadly, John passed away in May 2026, and his loss has been felt deeply across the network. Yet his influence remains present in everything we have achieved. Every collaboration, every publication, every conversation, every new partnership. John's vision became CUPID, and his legacy will continue long after this conference concludes. I also want to take the opportunity to remember Eleanor Kelly. Eleanor was a member of Working Group 1 and an outstanding advocate, and she brought lived experience, honesty and authenticity to our work. And Eleanor reminded us that inclusion is not something we do for people, it is something we do with people. And Eleanor certainly challenged assumptions, and she helped us understand barriers from different perspectives. And she ensured that our discussions remained grounded in reality. Eleanor unfortunately passed away in August 2025, and she's greatly missed. And today we honour both John and Eleanor. Their contributions shaped this action, and their legacy continues through the work that we will carry forward. So, building a European community. One of the greatest achievements of CUPID has been the creation of a genuine community. Over 4 years, we've brought together people from diverse disciplines and backgrounds. Many of us met as strangers. Today and tomorrow, we meet as colleagues and friends. And that may sound simple, but meaningful collaboration doesn't happen automatically. It requires trust, respect, listening, and a willingness to learn from one another. And these values, I believe, have defined CUPID. The network has definitely grown. We grew from less than 50 members in year 1, and we've over 300 members today. We established 4 working groups, and I'm very grateful to the working group leads for all of the work that they have done, and through the conference you will get to meet them and to hear about their work. We delivered 2 training schools. We supported 9 short-term scientific missions. We hosted multiple webinars, and these are available on our YouTube channel. We developed accessible resources. We produced publications. We presented at conferences. We created opportunities for early career researchers. And more importantly, we embedded co-production throughout our activities. Every year brought new ideas, new partnerships, and new outputs. What began as a network has become a community of practice, and that community extends far beyond CUPID now. So our work highlighted persistent challenges. Firstly, participation in cancer screening remains lower among people with intellectual disabilities, and this has been reported, as Cynthia said, across breast, cervical and colorectal cancer screening programs. Secondly, cancer is often diagnosed later, and delayed detection limits treatment options and negatively impacts outcomes. And thirdly, diagnostic overshadowing remains a significant issue. Symptoms, cancer symptoms, may be attributed to disability rather than being investigated appropriately. And finally, inequalities continue throughout the cancer journey pathway, from prevention to diagnosis to treatment to follow-up care. And these are not isolated issues, they reflect broader systemic barriers, and systemic barriers require systemic solutions. And if there's one lesson, I think that for me that stands out above all others, it's the importance of co-production. The strongest outputs produced by CUPID were those we developed in partnership with people with intellectual disabilities. And it's not because inclusion is currently fashionable. No, it's because inclusion improves quality. People with lived experience bring perspectives that researchers alone could never provide. They helped us identify barriers, challenge assumptions, improve accessibility, and they strengthened our research and our education, and they strengthened our impact. So these are some of our experts by experience. We have some of them in the audience with us today and delighted to welcome them, and I know we'll hear from them later. They also attended our training schools and our webinars, and their contribution reminds us that statistics often only tell part of the story, and they remind us that equitable healthcare matters. And they challenge us to continue to strive for inclusion, and their voices, in my opinion, have transformed CUPID, and they must continue to shape future work. So this conference reflects everything CUPID stands for: research, practice, policy, education, advocacy, and lived experience. And over the next day and tomorrow, we will hear from international experts, researchers, clinicians, policymakers and self-advocates. And we will celebrate achievements, and we will reflect on challenges, and we will explore future directions. And more importantly, we will continue the conversations that have defined this action. So what then will be the legacy of CUPID? It's natural to ask, what is the legacy? And the legacy is not simply a list of publications, and it's not the meetings we attended or the conferences we organised. The real legacy lies elsewhere. It actually lies in the partnerships that we have developed and that we will continue. It has empowered self-advocates. It has inspired researchers who will continue this work. It has inspired healthcare professionals who now, we hope, will start to think differently about cancer prevention and intellectual disability. It inspired our early career researchers who are here with us in the audience and online. And it has inspired them to continue to research in this very important field. And in the growing recognition that people with intellectual disabilities must be included in cancer prevention efforts. I believe the conversation has changed, and that change matters. So, the conclusion of CUPID won't be the end. It's the beginning of the next chapter. The inequalities that we have identified have not disappeared. Much work remains. We must continue to build the evidence. We must continue to influence policy, improve education, enhance accessibility, and strengthen our healthcare systems. And we must continue working alongside people with intellectual disabilities. The future demands nothing less. I do want to acknowledge a whole group of people, but I won't read them all out for fear I'd leave out names. But I do want to thank, we have a management committee. Some of the members of the management committee are with us today and online. I want to thank them for their work. I really want to thank our wonderful working group leads. Cost actions are wonderful, but they only support the networking events. They don't support the work and the time that people have to put in. And I think that is a really important point that we need to bring to Europe. Because our working group leads have contributed enormous amounts of time and effort to ensure the success of our action. And I really do want to thank them. In fact, we say in Ireland, a bula bus. A bula bus is a clap. So we shall give them a clap. I do want to highlight somebody else who some of you will know from this slide, and Françoise. Françoise is our project manager, and Françoise was just fantastic. And we couldn't have done this without her. She put an enormous amount of work into preparing for the conference. Unfortunately then, she took very ill a few weeks ago. Now she's making a recovery, and I hope she had hoped she might join for this session. So Françoise, if you're online, this is for you. It's a very big thank you, and I hope you know how much we appreciate you.